Victoria Ashworth stood by the tall windows of her apartment. She looked down at the busy streets of Manhattan far below. Cars moved like tiny toys. People walked like ants. From the 45th floor, everything looked small and unimportant. She turned away from the window and walked across her living room. Her high heels clicked on the marble floor. The sound echoed in the huge space. The room was bigger than most people's entire homes. Expensive paintings hung on the walls. A crystal chandelier sparkled above her head. Victoria was 52 years old and very rich. She had made her money from technology companies. Forbes magazine said she was worth $400 million. She owned this penthouse apartment, a house in the Hamptons, and another house in California. She had more money than she could spend in 10 lifetimes, but today Victoria was bored. Very bored. She had already checked her emails. She had talked to her business manager. She had looked at her stock prices. Everything was going well. Too well, maybe. There was nothing exciting happening. Nothing to challenge her mind. Victoria walked to her study. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Most of them she had never read. In the center of the room sat a beautiful chess set. The pieces were made of white marble and black onyx. The board was carved from a single piece of mahogany wood. The whole set had cost $15,000. Chess was Victoria's favorite game. She was very good at it. She belonged to the Manhattan Chess Club, where only rich and important people could join. She played against lawyers, doctors, and business owners. Most of the time she won. But lately, even chess had become boring. The other players at her club were too predictable. She could beat them easily. Victoria picked up the white king and turned it in her hand. The marble was smooth and cool. She wished someone would give her a real challenge. Someone who could make the game exciting again. Just then, she heard voices from the kitchen. One voice belonged to Maria, her housekeeper. Maria had worked for Victoria for 3 years. She was a quiet woman from Mexico who cleaned the apartment and cooked meals. The other voice was younger. It sounded like a teenage boy. Victoria walked toward the kitchen. She rarely went there. That was Maria's space. But today, her curiosity was stronger than her usual habits. "Diego, you need to wait quietly," Maria was saying in Spanish. "Mrs. Ashworth does not like noise." "I know, Mama," the boy answered, also in Spanish. "I brought my chess book." "I will study while you work." Victoria stopped in the doorway. She saw Maria wiping down the counter. Next to her sat a teenage boy. He looked about 16 years old. He had dark hair and brown eyes like his mother. He wore a school uniform that looked old and worn. The blue shirt had been washed so many times that it was starting to fade. In front of the boy was an old paperback book. Victoria could see the title, "Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess." The pages were yellow and the cover was bent. Someone had written notes in the margins with a pencil. "What is that book?" Victoria asked. Maria jumped. She had not heard Victoria come in. "I am sorry, Mrs. Ashworth. This is my son Diego. His school ended early today. I hope it is okay that he waits here." Victoria looked at the boy. Diego had stood up when she entered. He held the chess book against his chest. His eyes looked nervous but respectful. "You study chess?" Victoria asked him. Diego nodded. "Yes. I'm trying to learn." His English was good, but Victoria could hear his accent. She noticed that his clothes were clean but very old. His shoes had been repaired several times. This was clearly a family that did not have much money. "Where did you get that book?" Victoria asked. "From the library," Diego said. "I check it out every 2 weeks. I have read it many times." Victoria felt a small smile form on her lips. The idea amused her. This poor boy trying to learn chess from an old library book. How cute, how simple. "Do you know how to play?" She asked. "A little bit," Diego said. "I practice the moves in my head. Sometimes I play games against myself." Victoria's smile grew bigger. Against himself? In his head? This was even more amusing than she had thought. The boy probably knew how the pieces moved, but he could not really understand the game. Chess required years of study. It required expensive books and good teachers. It required playing against Strong opponents. An idea formed in Victoria's mind. A wonderful idea. Would you like to play a game? She asked. Diego's eyes went wide. With you? Why not? Victoria said. I have a chess set in my study. We could play one quick game. Maria looked worried. Mrs. Ashworth, you do not need to bother with. It is no bother, Victoria said, waving her hand. I have time. And it might be fun to teach the boy a few things about real chess. The truth was, Victoria thought this would be very entertaining. She would beat this poor boy easily, maybe in 10 moves. Maybe 15 if she was gentle. It would be like playing against a small child. She could show him a few basic strategies. He would be impressed by her skill. She would feel good about helping someone less fortunate. It would be the most interesting thing that had happened to her all week. Come, Victoria said to Diego. Let me show you what a real chess set looks like. Diego looked at his mother. Maria nodded slowly, though she still looked worried. Victoria led Diego to her study. His footsteps were quiet on the marble floor. She could tell he was trying not to make any noise. When they reached the study, Diego stopped and stared. Wow, he whispered. Victoria felt proud. The room was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, expensive art on the walls, and in the center her beautiful chess set. This is a real chess set, Victoria said. The pieces are made of marble and onyx. The board is carved from mahogany wood. Diego walked slowly to the chess set. He did not touch anything, but Victoria could see the wonder in his eyes. He had probably never seen anything so expensive in his life. It is beautiful, Diego said softly. Victoria sat down in one of the leather chairs. Sit, she said, pointing to the chair across from her. Diego sat down carefully. He kept his hands in his lap as if he was afraid to touch anything. Victoria began setting up the pieces. She placed each one with care, enjoying Diego's amazed expression. The white marble pieces gleamed in the light. The black onyx pieces looked deep and mysterious. Do you know which pieces are which? Victoria asked. Yes, ma'am, Diego said. Pawns, rooks, knights, bishops, queen, and king. Good, Victoria said. And do you know how they move? Diego nodded. I think so. Victoria finished setting up the board. She sat back in her chair and looked at the boy across from her. He seemed so small and nervous. This was going to be easy. Too easy, maybe. She would have to be careful not to crush his spirit completely. You can play white, Victoria said. White always moves first. Diego stared at the board. His face was serious and concentrated. Victoria waited for him to make his first move. Probably pawn to e4 or pawn to d4. Those were the most basic opening moves. Any beginner would know them, but Diego did not move quickly. He studied the board for a long time. His eyes moved from piece to piece. He seemed to be thinking very hard about something. Victoria tapped her fingers on the armrest of her chair. How long could it take to make the first move? It was just chess. Just a simple game between a rich woman and a poor boy, who had learned from library books. She had no idea that her comfortable world was about to change forever. Diego stared at the chessboard for 3 long minutes. Victoria had never seen anyone think so hard about the first move. She was starting to feel a little impatient. How difficult could it be? Most people just pushed a pawn forward and started playing, but Diego seemed to be studying every piece. His eyes moved across the board like he was seeing something she could not see. His face was serious and focused. Victoria had to admit she was a little curious about what he was thinking. Finally, Diego reached out and touched the pawn in front of his king. Victoria nodded. Good. Pawn to e4. That was the most common first move. At least the boy knew the basics, but then Diego stopped. His hand stayed on the pawn, but he did not move it. He looked at the board again. Then he moved his hand to a different pawn, the one in front of his queen's knight. Victoria frowned. That was not a normal opening move. Pawn to c4. It was called the English opening. It was not a beginner's move. Most people who learn chess from library books would not even know about it. Diego moved the pawn 2 squares forward. The piece made a soft click as it touched the Wooden board. Victoria looked at the move. It was not wrong. In fact, it was quite good, but it was unexpected. She had been ready for a simple, basic game. This opening would lead to more complex positions. Interesting choice, Victoria said. She tried to keep her voice calm, but inside she felt a small surprise. Diego said nothing. He sat back in his chair and looked at Victoria. His hands were folded in his lap again. He was waiting for her response. Victoria moved her own pawn to e5. It was a good, solid reply. She had played this position many times before. Diego's move was unusual, but she knew how to handle it. Now it was Diego's turn again. Victoria expected him to develop a knight or maybe push another pawn. These were the normal moves that chess books taught, but Diego surprised her again. He moved his knight to f3, but not in the usual way. Most players would have moved it to c3 first. Diego's move was more aggressive. It attacked Victoria's pawn immediately and controlled important squares in the center of the board. Victoria studied the position more carefully. This was not the kind of move she expected from a boy who learned chess from library books. This move showed real understanding of chess strategy. It was the kind of move that strong players made. She moved her pawn to d6, defending her e5 pawn. It was a safe move, but she realized she was already having to think more than she had planned. Diego moved again quickly. This time, he brought his other knight out to c3. Now both of his knights were attacking the center of the board. They worked together like a team. Victoria felt a small flutter of concern. Diego's pieces were developing very well. Too well. He was not playing like a beginner at all. She moved her knight to f6, developing her own pieces and putting pressure on Diego's pawn. But as soon as she made the move, she saw Diego's eyes light up. It was just for a second, but she saw it. He looked like he had been hoping she would make exactly that move. Diego moved his bishop to g5. The piece slid across the board smoothly. It was a pin attack. The bishop was attacking Victoria's knight, and if the knight moved, Diego could capture her queen. Victoria stared at the board. This was definitely not beginner chess. Diego had just made a sophisticated tactical move, the kind of move that required real understanding of chess patterns and tricks. She moved her bishop to e7, breaking the pin. It was the correct response. But she was no longer thinking about this as a simple teaching game. Diego was actually playing chess. Real chess. Diego castled kingside, moving his king to safety. The move was smooth and confident. He did not hesitate or second-guess himself. Victoria castled as well. As she moved her pieces, she studied Diego's face. The nervous, respectful boy from the kitchen was gone. In his place sat a chess player. His eyes were sharp and focused. He looked at the board like a hunter looking at prey. "Where did you really learn to play?" Victoria asked. Diego looked up at her. "From books, like I said. And I watch games online when I can use the computer." "At school?" "Just books and online games?" "Yes, ma'am. And I solve chess puzzles. The library has puzzle books, too." Victoria moved her queen to c7, developing the piece and putting pressure on Diego's position. But Diego did not look worried. If anything, he looked pleased. He moved his rook to c1. The move was quiet but powerful. The rook was now attacking along the c-file, creating threats that Victoria would have to deal with. Victoria began to realize that she had made a mistake. Not a mistake in her moves, but a mistake in her thinking. She had assumed that Diego would be easy to beat because he was young and poor and learned from library books. But Diego was not playing like someone who was easy to beat. He was playing like someone who understood chess. Victoria moved her queen back to d8. She was starting to play more defensively. Diego's pieces were becoming more active with each move. Her own pieces felt cramped and awkward. Diego moved his queen to a4. The move came with check. Victoria's king was in danger. Victoria moved her king to f8. It was the only legal move, but it put her king in an uncomfortable position. Diego's queen was now very active on the 4th rank. "Check," Diego said quietly. It was the first word he had spoken since the game began. Victoria looked at him. His voice was calm and confident. There was no excitement or surprise in it. He had planned this check. Maybe he had planned it several moves ago. Diego moved his bishop to h6, another check. Victoria's king was being hunted across the board. Victoria moved her king to g8. She was starting to feel pressure. Real pressure? The kind she felt when she played against strong opponents at her chess club, but those opponents were doctors and lawyers and business owners. They had expensive chess sets and private coaches. They had been playing chess for decades. Diego was 16 years old. He learned from library books. His mother cleaned other people's houses for money. How was he doing this? Diego moved his queen to a3. The piece was now attacking multiple targets. Victoria realized she was in serious trouble. Her position was falling apart. She moved her rook to e8, trying to defend. But she could see that Diego's attack was just getting started. Diego moved his knight to d5. The piece landed in the center of the board like a bomb. From d5, the knight attacked many of Victoria's pieces at once. Victoria stared at the position. Diego had outplayed her completely. In just 15 moves, he had gone from nervous teenager to attacking machine. His pieces worked together perfectly. Every move had a purpose. She looked up at Diego. He was watching her with those sharp, focused eyes, waiting to see how she would respond to his attack. Victoria realized something that made her stomach feel cold. Diego was not just playing good chess. Diego was playing better chess than she was. Victoria moved her bishop to d7, trying to block some of Diego's threats. But she knew it was not enough. Diego's position was simply too strong. Diego smiled for the first time since the game began. It was not a mean smile or a proud smile. It was the smile of someone who loved chess and was enjoying a good game. "Your move," he said softly. Victoria looked at the board again. She was the one with the expensive chess set. She was the one with money and education and years of experience. She was the one who belonged to exclusive chess clubs, but Diego was winning, and they both knew it. Victoria moved her rook to c8, trying to defend against Diego's attack. But even as she made the move, she knew it was not going to be enough. Diego's pieces were everywhere. They controlled the center of the board. They attacked her pieces from multiple directions. She had played chess for 20 years. She had never been in a position this bad so quickly. Diego studied the board for a moment. Then he moved his queen to a7. The move looked simple, but Victoria could see its power. The queen was now attacking her rook and controlling important squares on the back rank. Victoria felt sweat forming on her forehead. The air conditioning in her apartment was working perfectly, but she felt hot. Her hands were starting to shake slightly. She moved her rook to b8, getting it out of danger. But Diego was ready for that too. He moved his knight from d5 to f6. Check. Again, Victoria's king was being chased around the board. She moved it to h into the corner. It was the only safe square, but it felt like a trap. Diego brought his other knight to e4. Now both knights were deep in Victoria's position. They worked together like dancers, controlling squares and creating threats. Victoria tried to exchange pieces. When you were losing, it was usually good to trade pieces and simplify the position. She moved her bishop to attack Diego's knight, but Diego ignored her attack. Instead, he moved his rook to c7. The move was bold and aggressive. He was sacrificing his knight to keep his attack going. Victoria captured the knight with her bishop. She had won a piece. In most chess games, that would be good news. But she did not feel happy about it. Diego recaptured with his rook. Now his rook was on the 7th rank, attacking Victoria's pawns and supporting the rest of his pieces. Victoria looked at the position and felt her heart sink. Even though she had won a knight, Diego's position was still much better. His pieces were more active. His king was safer. His attack was still dangerous. She moved her queen to try to defend. But Diego's next move made her gasp. He moved his queen to a8. Check. Victoria's king had nowhere to go. She had to move her rook to block the check. But that just gave Diego more targets to attack. Diego moved his rook to c1. The piece slid along the back rank like a snake. It was attacking Victoria's king and her other pieces at the same time. Victoria realized that Diego was not just playing good moves. He was playing brilliant moves, Every piece had a purpose. Every move created multiple threats. She had seen this kind of chess before, at the highest levels of the game, when grandmasters played against each other, but she had never expected to see it from a 16-year-old boy who learned from library books. Victoria moved her king to g7, trying to escape the attack. But Diego's pieces followed her everywhere. He moved his queen to a4. The move was quiet but deadly. The queen was now attacking along the fourth rank and supporting the rook's attack. Victoria looked around the room. She noticed that Maria had appeared in the doorway. Her housekeeper was watching the game with worried eyes. Behind Maria, Victoria could see two other servants. They had heard something was happening and come to watch. This made Victoria feel even worse. Her servants were watching her lose to a boy they probably thought was just a poor kid who did not belong here, but Diego belonged here. At least his chess belonged here. Victoria had to admit that she had never seen anyone play like this. Diego moved his rook to c4. The piece was now attacking Victoria's queen, and controlling the center of the board. Victoria moved her queen away. She was running out of good squares. Every move felt like a retreat. Diego moved his queen to a2. The move looked harmless, but Victoria could see the trap. Diego was preparing a combination that would win more material. She tried to find a way to defend, but Diego's position was too strong. His pieces worked together perfectly. Every move created new problems for her to solve. Victoria moved her rook to d8, trying to activate her pieces. But Diego was ready for that too. He moved his knight to d5, the same square as before, but this time it was even more powerful. The knight attacked Victoria's queen and bishop at the same time. Victoria had to move her queen again. She was being pushed around the board like a beginner. Diego moved his queen to a7. The move was the final piece of his combination. Now Victoria's rook was trapped. She could not move it without losing it. Victoria stared at the position. She was going to lose her rook. That would give Diego a huge advantage in material. The game would be over soon, but more than that, Victoria realized something that shocked her. Diego was not just winning. He was playing better chess than she had ever seen. His moves were not just good, they were perfect. Every piece worked together. Every move had multiple purposes. It was like watching a master craftsman work. Victoria looked at Diego across the board. He was still calm and focused. His face showed no emotion. He was not excited about winning. He was not proud of his brilliant moves. He was just playing chess. And he was playing it better than Victoria had ever imagined possible. How? Victoria whispered. Diego looked up at her. How what? How do you play like this? You're 16 years old. You learn from library books. How do you play better than people who have been playing for decades? Diego was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I love chess. I think about it all the time. When I walk to school, I solve puzzles in my head. When I do homework, I think about chess positions. When I go to sleep, I replay famous games. Victoria felt a strange emotion. It was not anger or embarrassment. It was something else. Something she had not felt in a long time. It was respect. You have a gift, she said quietly. Diego shook his head. I just work hard. I study every day. I read every chess book I can find. I watch every game I can watch online. Victoria made her next move. She moved her rook to e8. It was a desperate attempt to stay in the game. Diego moved his queen to a8. Check again. Victoria's king was being hunted down. She moved it to f7. Diego moved his rook to c7. Check. Victoria moved her king to f8. Diego moved his queen to a7. Victoria realized that Diego was playing with her. He could probably checkmate her in a few moves, but he was being polite. He was giving her chances to keep playing. The servants in the doorway were watching silently. Maria looked proud of her son, but also worried about what Victoria would think. Victoria looked at the board one more time. Diego's pieces surrounded her king. There was no escape. She had started this game thinking she would teach Diego a few things about chess. Instead, Diego had taught her something about herself. Victoria realized that she had been living in a bubble. She thought that money and education and social status made her better than other people. She thought that expensive Chess sets and exclusive clubs made her a better chess player, but Diego had shown her the truth. Chess was not about money or status. It was about understanding. It was about passion. It was about love for the game, and Diego loved chess more than anyone Victoria had ever met. Victoria made her next move. She knew it was hopeless, but she wanted to see how Diego would finish the game. Diego smiled again, that same gentle smile from before. "Your move," he said, but Victoria knew the game was already over. Victoria moved her bishop to c6, trying to create some defense, but she knew it was too late. Diego's pieces were everywhere. Her king was trapped. Her other pieces could not help. She looked at Diego across the board. He was studying the position, but not with the desperation she felt. He looked calm and confident, like he could see 5 moves ahead. Maybe he could. Diego moved his rook to c8. The move was forcing. Victoria's king was in check again. Victoria moved her king to f7. It was the only legal move, but it put her king in even more danger. Diego moved his queen to a4. The move was quiet but deadly. Victoria could see the pattern now. Diego was setting up a final attack that she could not stop. Victoria felt something she had not felt in years. Panic. She was Victoria Ashworth. She was worth $400 million. She belonged to the best chess club in Manhattan. She played against doctors and lawyers and business owners. She won most of her games, but she was losing to a 16-year-old boy who learned chess from library books. "You're getting lucky," Victoria said suddenly. Diego looked up at her. His face showed surprise. "These are just lucky moves," Victoria continued. "Chess is not about luck. It is about understanding the real game. The deep game. You might know some tricks from books, but you do not understand real chess." Even as she said the words, Victoria knew they were not true. Diego's moves were not lucky. They were brilliant. Every move had shown deep understanding of chess strategy and tactics, but Victoria felt desperate. Her ego was being crushed. She needed to find a way to feel better about what was happening. Diego said nothing. He just looked at her with those calm, focused eyes. Victoria moved her rook to e7, trying to defend. But Diego was ready for that too. He moved his queen to a7. The move was the final piece of his combination. Now Victoria's position was completely hopeless. "You do not even understand what you are doing," Victoria said. Her voice was getting louder. "You are just copying moves from books?" Real chess players understand the reasons behind the moves. They understand the deep principles. Diego spoke quietly. "I understand the principles. Control the center. Develop pieces quickly. Keep the king safe. Create threats. Look for tactical patterns." Victoria felt her face getting hot. Those are basic things. Anyone can learn those from books. Real chess is about experience, about playing against strong opponents, about understanding positions that are not in books. Diego nodded politely. "You are right. I have not played against many strong opponents. I mostly play against myself or solve puzzles, but I have studied thousands of games by grandmasters. I have memorized their patterns. I have learned their strategies." Victoria moved her king to g8. It was another desperate move. She was running out of options. Diego moved his rook to c1. The move was simple but powerful. It attacked along the back rank and supported his queen's attack. "How many games have you studied?" Victoria asked. She was trying to find some way to prove that Diego was not as good as he seemed. "About 2,000, Diego said. "I write down the moves in notebooks. I replay them at home. I try to understand why the grandmasters made each move." Victoria felt her heart sink. 2,000 games. She had probably studied 50 games in her entire life. "How many chess puzzles have you solved?" she asked. "I do not know exactly. Maybe 10,000. I solve puzzles every day. Tactical puzzles, endgame puzzles, strategy puzzles. 10,000 puzzles." Victoria had solved maybe 100 puzzles in her life. She made her next move. She moved her queen to d6. It was a desperate attempt to create some counterplay. Diego moved his queen to 8. Check. Victoria's king was being hunted down again. She moved it to f7. Diego moved his rook to c7, check. Victoria moved her king to f8. Diego moved his queen to a7. Victoria realized that Diego was repeating the position. He was being polite. He could probably checkmate her, but he was giving her more chances to play. This made Victoria feel even worse. Diego was not just beating her. He was being gentle about it, like she was a child who needed to be treated carefully. "You think you are so smart," Victoria said. Her voice was sharp now. "You think you understand chess better than people who have been playing for decades, but you are just a boy. A poor boy who does not understand the real world." Diego's face did not change. He just looked at her with those calm eyes. "I do not think I am smart," he said quietly. "I just love chess. I study it because I enjoy it. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone." Victoria felt ashamed as soon as she said the words. She knew she was being cruel. Diego had done nothing wrong. He was just playing chess. Good chess. Better chess than she had ever seen, but Victoria could not stop herself. Her pride was hurt, her ego was broken. She needed to find a way to feel superior again. "Chess is not just about studying," she said. "It is about natural talent. It is about being born with the right kind of mind. You might have memorized some patterns, but you do not have real chess talent." Diego was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Maybe you are right. Maybe I do not have natural talent, but I work hard. I study every day. I love the game." Victoria made her next move. She moved her bishop to try to create some defense. Diego responded immediately. He moved his queen to a1. The move was beautiful. It attacked along the long diagonal and supported his other pieces. Victoria stared at the position. Diego's move was not just good, it was perfect. It was the kind of move that grandmasters made in famous games. She looked at Diego. He was still calm and focused. Her cruel words had not upset him. He was just playing chess. Victoria realized that Diego was not just talented. He was humble. He was respectful. He was kind, and she was being mean to him because she was losing. Victoria felt a wave of shame wash over her. She had invited Diego to play chess as a way to amuse herself. She had expected to beat him easily and feel good about teaching him something. Instead, Diego had shown her what real chess looked like. He had shown her what real dedication looked like. He had shown her what real love for the game looked like. And instead of being grateful, she was being cruel. Victoria moved her rook to e1, trying to exchange pieces. But Diego ignored her attempt. He moved his rook to c2. The move was aggressive and beautiful. It attacked her pawns and supported his queen's attack. Victoria looked at the position. Diego's pieces worked together like a symphony. Every move was perfectly coordinated with the others. She had been playing chess for 20 years. She had never seen anyone play like this. Diego was not just beating her. He was teaching her what chess could be. Victoria made her next move. She knew it was hopeless, but she wanted to see how Diego would finish the game. Diego looked at the board for a moment. Then he looked at Victoria. "Would you like me to show you the checkmate?" he asked quietly. Victoria felt her throat tighten. Diego was offering to show her how he would win. He was being polite even though she had been mean to him. Victoria nodded. She could not speak. Diego began to explain his next few moves. His voice was gentle and respectful. He showed her the patterns he was using. He explained the principles behind each move. Victoria listened and realized that Diego was not just a good chess player. He was a good teacher too, and she had been a terrible student. Diego moved his queen to a8. Check. Victoria moved her king to f7. It was the only legal move. Diego moved his rook to c7. Check. Victoria moved her king to f6. Diego moved his queen to a3. Check. Victoria moved her king to f5. Diego moved his queen to a5. Check. Victoria's king was being chased across the board. She moved it to f4. Diego moved his rook to c4. Check. Victoria moved her king to f3. Diego moved his queen to a3. Check. Victoria moved her king to f2. Diego moved his rook to c2. Check. Victoria moved her king to f1. Diego moved his queen to a1. Checkmate. Victoria stared at the board. Her king was trapped. Diego's queen and rook worked together to control all the escape squares. There was no way out. Checkmate, Diego said quietly. Victoria looked at the position for a long moment. The game was over. Diego had won, but more than that, Diego had played the most beautiful chess Victoria had ever seen. Every move had been perfect. Every piece had worked together. It was like watching an artist create a masterpiece. Victoria looked up at Diego. He was already starting to put the pieces back in their starting positions. His face showed no pride or excitement. He was just resetting the board like he was ready to play another game. That was ... Victoria started to say, then stopped. She did not know how to finish the sentence. Thank you for the game, Diego said. Your chess set is beautiful. I have never played on pieces this nice before. Victoria felt tears forming in her eyes. Diego was thanking her. Even though she had been mean to him, even though she had said cruel things about his chess and his background, Diego, Victoria said, I owe you an apology. Diego looked up from the chessboard. For what? For the things I said. They were not true. You are not lucky. You are not just copying moves from books. You are brilliant. You play chess better than anyone I have ever seen. Diego's face showed surprise. Thank you, but I still have much to learn. Victoria laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just realized how wrong she had been. What do you want to do with chess? Victoria asked. Do you want to play in tournaments? Do you want to become a professional player? Diego's eyes lit up for the first time. I dream about it. I would love to play in tournaments. I would love to play against other strong players, but... He stopped talking and looked down at his hands. But what? Victoria asked. Tournaments cost money. Entry fees, travel, hotels. My mother works very hard, but we do not have money for things like that. Victoria felt something twist in her stomach. Here was a boy with incredible talent, maybe once-in-a-lifetime talent. And he could not pursue his dream because of money. Money that meant nothing to Victoria. She spent more on dinner at expensive restaurants than it would cost to enter Diego in tournaments. What about coaches? Victoria asked. Have you ever had lessons? Diego shook his head. I cannot afford a coach. I learn from books and online videos. Sometimes I watch games at the chess club in the park, but I am too shy to ask if I can play. Victoria stood up from her chair. She walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Somewhere down there were chess clubs and tournaments and coaches. A whole world of chess that Diego could not access because he did not have money. Diego, Victoria said, turning back to him. How would you like to have a chess coach? Diego's eyes went wide. I would love that. But I told you we cannot afford. I will pay for it, Victoria said. Diego stared at her. What? I will pay for your chess coach and for tournaments. And for books, and for anything else you need? Diego looked confused. Why would you do that? Victoria sat back down across from him. Because you have a gift. A real gift. And gifts like yours should not be wasted because of money. Diego looked at his mother, who was still watching from the doorway. Maria had tears in her eyes. I do not understand, Diego said. A few minutes ago you were angry with me. Victoria felt her face get hot with shame. I was not angry with you. I was angry with myself. I was embarrassed because you played better than me. I said mean things because my pride was hurt. That was wrong of me. Diego was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You do not need to feel embarrassed. You played well. I have been studying chess. For years, you had no way to know that. Victoria almost laughed. Even now, Diego was being kind to her. He was trying to make her feel better about losing. Diego, Victoria said, I want to ask you something. Would you be willing to play chess with me regularly? Maybe once a week? I would like to learn from you. Diego looked surprised. You want to learn from me? Yes, I have been playing chess for 20 years, but I have never really understood it. Not the way you do. I would like you to teach me. Diego smiled. It was the first real smile Victoria had seen from him. I would love that, but I am not a teacher. I am just a student. You are a better teacher than you think, Victoria said. The way you explained your moves to me at the end of the game, I learned more in those 5 minutes than I have learned in months at my chess club. Victoria stood up and walked to her desk. She pulled out a piece of paper and wrote something on it. Then she handed it to Diego. This is the name and phone number of the best chess coach in New York. His name is Master Chun. He has trained several players who became grandmasters. I will call him tomorrow and arrange for you to start lessons. Diego took the paper with shaking hands. I cannot accept. It is too much. It is not too much, Victoria said. It is the least I can do. You have shown me something today that I had forgotten. What is that? Diego asked. You have shown me what it means to love something completely, to work hard for something you believe in, to be humble even when you are brilliant. I had forgotten what that looked like. Victoria walked to her bookshelf and pulled out a thick book. It was a collection of famous chess games, bound in leather and gold. This is for you, she said, handing the book to Diego. I want you to have it. Diego opened the book carefully. The pages were thick and white. The chess diagrams were clear and detailed. It is beautiful, Diego whispered. There are 500 games in that book, Victoria said. Games by the greatest players in history. I bought it years ago, but never. Read it. I think you will use it better than I ever could. Diego closed the book and held it against his chest. Thank you. I will study every game, Victoria smiled. I know you will. Maria stepped into the room. Mrs. Ashworth, I do not know what to say. Thank you so much. Victoria looked at Maria. Your son is special, very special. He should have every opportunity to succeed. Victoria turned back to Diego. There is one more thing. I want to sponsor your tournament play. Entry fees, travel, everything. And if you ever make it to the professional level, I want to be your sponsor. Diego's eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this for me? Victoria thought about the question. Why was she doing this? A few hours ago, she had been bored and looking for entertainment. She had invited Diego to play chess because she thought it would be amusing. Now she was offering to change his life. Because today you reminded me of something important, Victoria said. Money and status and expensive things do not make you better than other people. Talent and hard work and love for what you do, those are the things that matter. Victoria looked at her beautiful chess set. The marble pieces gleamed in the afternoon light. The mahogany board was polished and perfect. And because, Victoria continued, I want to learn what real chess looks like. I want you to teach me how to love the game the way you do. Diego stood up and extended his hand. It would be my honor to play chess with you, Mrs. Ashworth. Victoria shook his hand. Call me Victoria. And the honor is mine. As Diego and his mother prepared to leave, Victoria felt something she had not felt in years. She felt excited about the future. She felt like she had a purpose. Tomorrow she would call Master Chun. She would arrange coaching for Diego. She would sign him up for tournaments. She would help him chase his dream, and maybe, if she was lucky, Diego would teach her how to dream again too. Diego picked up his old chess book and the new leather-bound collection. He looked at Victoria one more time. Thank you, he said. For everything. Thank you, Victoria replied. For reminding me what really matters. After they left, Victoria sat alone in her study. She looked at the chessboard where the pieces sat in their starting positions, ready for the next game, for the first time in years. Victoria could not wait to play chess again. And for the first time in years, she did not care if she won or lost. She just wanted to learn.